This is Foodie Call on the G1 podcast.
Welcome to Foodie Call. My name is Chuck. I'm from Cali Kitchen.
My name is Thomas. I'm the private executive chef for the U.S. Ambassador.
James Yu, Windy City Pizza.
I am GP here, host of Rock Bottom on the G1 podcast. We are Foodie Call, and today Chuck is guiding us through. So I have the pleasure of just kind of sitting back, relaxing, letting him do all the work, sweating it out. I have all the confidence in the world. I don't know if Thomas does. He never seems to.
No.
Thomas is like the disapproving father I never had. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Just the way he's looking at you right now says everything.
Yes.
Someone's getting a timeout.
Let's jump into the topic. Chuck, what have you prepared for us today?
Today we are going to be talking about a first date and relationships and experiences with food. So the first question will be talking about what we consider a good first date. What is your ideal first date that involves food?
I think that we should all kind of mention that we're in different places here. I guess Thomas, you're married,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I actually don't know how long you've been married.
I don't either.
He doesn't either.
Okay,
But it's not been that long. It's, I believe, 5 years, I think.
congratulations, all the same. I have tremendous respect for people who can make a relationship last a long time, right? So awesome. Dating for you is going to be difficult, but maybe you can rewind the hands of time. Do you remember what it was like dating on the first date with your wife?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you like me to tell you?
No, I just wanted to see if you remembered.
Actually, our very, very first date, which actually was not really a first date.
Right.
I actually had called her out because a friend of mine was actually opening up basically a norebang. I had nobody else to go with except for, my friend was the owner. And so I actually called her out and told her to meet me there. And she just said she just got home. And she was actually living in Queens at the time. And so I said, just come on out. And so she actually did get in a cab. She came out. We hung out. And there was nothing that went on that night. But it was an icebreaker for both of us. And then the very next day, she actually asks me out to to this nice bar. But the bar also had private rooms. So she actually reserved one of the private rooms, and we drank, I think, like 2 bottles of single malt scotch in there.
Wow.
And this actually went on for 1 week straight, every night.
Was there food at any of those
There
points?
was no... Actually, there was anju,
Okay.
but there was no food. So we would go on these dates after I finished work, like around 11 o'clock at night, and we would just hang out until like 4 o'clock in the morning, just drinking. And this happened every night for 1 week. So that was our 1 week of first dates.
How important would you say food is in your relationship?
Like looking back.
Right now,
yeah.
it's 200% important. We both actually love eating. We actually eat out, I would say probably, or I personally eat out probably, I would say safely 500 times a year.
Wow.
Safely. And she's also a big part of that, 500 as well, because we actually go dining quite a bit as well. So that's how important food is.
I would say I go out maybe less than 1/10 of that number of times that you just mentioned.
So if a girl did not enjoy dining, that would be a serious deal breaker for me.
I mean, for me, as far as the relevance of food to a first date, granted, I don't go on a lot of blind dates, so I'm not really blindsided by new places, so to speak. So there will usually be a point where I talk to the girl first, and I'll try to at least figure out what types of food she doesn't like, to make sure to steer clear of those places. But as far as actual importance, I'd like it to be somewhere that I like. It doesn't have to be my favorite restaurant, but the food can't be a distraction. It can't be so bad where it distracts from the rest of the evening.
Wait, so are you saying that you like to be familiar with the place before you like to have already gone there before you actually take the date there?
It will very rarely be a place where neither of us have ever been.
Oh, that's interesting.
And why is that?
The first date to me isn't necessarily about the food. As much as I love food, it's not necessarily about the food. It's more a chance for me to get to know someone better. And to that extent, I would like there to be some sort of ambiance there. Not necessarily like private, bougie dining. As much as I like that, it doesn't have to be that. I would like the atmosphere to be sort of casual, where both of us are just going to be at ease, and to where you can have a pleasant conversation that way.
I think that's important, actually, the comfort level, because it is a first dating experience, and both of you need to be comfortable to get to know each other. So you have a valid point there.
I would like it to be somewhere that has that I know will have a decent number of people. So it's not going to be noisy, but there will be enough distraction to where it's not so quiet where you can hear literally crickets chirping, right? And I think that just sort of puts both people at ease, and it lends to the rest of the evening.
Certainly. When you mentioned this question, it's not exactly it's not a date that came to mind, but it's actually my last interaction with my half-sister. My half-sister is 11 years younger than me, and I actually have been absent for a very, very large part of her life because I've been living in Korea, and we don't have both the same parents. We share the same father, and so that kind of creates a barrier, right? I would like to establish a relationship. I got in contact with her. She lives in California, and what I decided that we were going to do is we were going to go to my favorite coffee shop, which is Phil's Coffee. It's a chain in California, and we went out to a food truck festival.
Is she old enough to drink coffee?
She's 17. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She seemed to enjoy it. I mean, she could have been lying, but no, I think she was all right with it. The food truck festival was just kind of cool because it was outdoors and it was comfortable. We got to look at things, do a little bit of people watching, and just kind of decide what food to have and share that, sit on some crates outside. And that was something that was really cool. And I'm kind of glad because we chose a food that was Greek. I don't think she'd ever had that before. And when I was 17, I'd never had Greek, right? And I was kind of concerned, what if she doesn't like this?
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of cool when you introduce somebody to a new experience altogether.
Yeah, like I don't always strive for that, but when I can, I think it's an interesting thing. We kind of exist in this interesting space here, in that we're expats. And speaking of exposing people to things, you go on dates with Koreans that are from Korea, and I've noticed that every time I do, it's never to a Korean restaurant.
GP, that's because you're a foreigner, and when they're dating a foreigner, they want a foreign experience.
So I thought, was I not enough of the foreign experience for them?
No, because I think, people want, you taking them to a foreign restaurant is very different from another Korean dude taking them to a foreign restaurant, right?
Because,
But actually, if you reverse the roles and say we're all back in the U.S., right?
Okay.
And there was let's say a Korean girl that came about and you wanted to take her on a date, would you take her to a Korean restaurant?
Yes,
You would.
I have.
So
But
he has.
but back in the U.S.
Did you get a second date?
Well, no, but here's the thing. At least where I lived, Korean restaurants, you have your little mom and pop joints in Koreatown.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, Korean food was sort of like upscale dining. It wasn't like going to like the local doenjang jjigae or like the jjigae here. They're fairly nice places, and they're not really cheap either. And that is sort of a new experience for someone that you date in America, possibly. At least it was back when I was younger. And I sort of equate that to, let's say, going out for foreign food here in Korea, because that's not the type of food that they're normally used to. And, I think when you take out, let's say, a Korean, and they know that obviously I'm not 100%, I'm not Korean, I'm a Korean American. So I think they would like some of that, they would like something a little bit different than something that they would normally get from, let's say, a typical, a regular Korean. So I don't know. That's just my take on it. But going back to what GP said, in Korea, I have never gone on a first date here to a Korean place. It's always been something foreign food.
You think that's intentional or subconscious?
For me, it's just a lack of general knowledge of really nice Korean places that would fulfill what I'm trying to get. I would actually have to probably.
What are you trying to get, James?
Huh?
But is it ambiance? Is that the thing? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. More of the casual type of places that I know out here would sort of be like your barbecue places where you sit around a round table and you drink a lot of soju and you grill food in front of you. And that's nice, but that's not really my type of, let's say, first date kind of place.
So Korean places don't have enough punigi.
No. I'm just saying that I don't know enough of the Korean places that have enough punigi or that have what I'm looking for.
I would argue means that there's not enough because James has been around a decade, right? You're not going to hang around a decade and not accumulate a number of places. That means disproportionately, I would say, unless you never go to Korean places, which I know that isn't the case, right?
I mean, for me, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I don't really drink a lot. And at least for many, many years, I didn't drink. So if you're going to a place where the punigi revolves around drinking and eating, then I miss out on a lot of that. So I would much rather be at a place where alcohol isn't so important to the eating, so to speak. And I can find that more at, let's say, Western places.
Okay. So the particular dates that you want to go on to create that vibe cannot really be found in Korean places.
It's not that they can't, they just haven't for me.
Okay. You said something about a samgyeopsal. You ever been on a first date at like a samgyeopsal place?
I can't remember a first date on a samgyeopsal place.
So
a lot of smoke, a lot of meat smell, and
that's
clothes.
another big thing too.
But I know Chuck will do something that it's uncomfortable, right? Quite frankly, that's uncomfortable. But Chuck, I know you're into doing a little bit of uncomfortable stuff on first dates, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think I try to make things uncomfortable on a first date, but I think what he's saying is that, for instance, I think sometimes a curveball can be a good thing. For me, a first date can be like a first interview, right? When you're meeting somebody for the first time, Chris Rock says, you're not meeting them, you're meeting the representative.
Exactly.
You're meeting like a polished version of them and the person they want you to see. So the way I see it is that if you can get out of that as quickly as possible, get a little bit more comfortable. And I mean, if the person can't get comfortable, that says something about them. That says something about you possibly. But also, I think when people are thrown into situations that they're not expecting or not used to, then I think people react. And I think that's like how, that says a lot. And that's a part of getting to know somebody. Even when James was talking about earlier, or when you talked earlier and you said, sometimes you choose a restaurant either that you're familiar with or something that she would be comfortable with. What's more important? Like a place where you can be like, hey, I got this, and kind of show off that you're the man, or you're guiding this experience, or is it really just get her into a place where she will be more comfortable to open up? Does that matter, if at all?
I was actually referring to. Okay, so the first thing I was thinking about was how the date is actually framed. It's very different when you've known someone a while and that baseline is already established, right? Or if it's a soulgate thing, it's a blind date and you've never actually met the person. You've exchanged literally logistical details via Kakao Talk, this place, this time, see you then. That's different as well. But also in terms of seeing what are you down for. So if you're actually down for samgyeopsal, I'm like, sure, right? I don't care if you smell like meat. I not have as much as you might care. But then there's places where you have to go to a different extent. Places like the chain Boiling Crab, right? And I know you enjoy the Boiling Crab, right?
Yes, not as much as my friends, but I really do. I mean, I enjoyed the experience of it, right?
Yeah. So taking someone on a first date to a place like that achieves more than one purpose of eating good food. It kind of goes to test them, to vet them.
I think everything is kind of a test, right? In the sense that you're testing yourself, and this person to see if there is a second date lined up, in the sense that is this going to be more than a one-time thing, right? And so I think finding out, getting your hands dirty literally at a boiling crab while, taking apart crustaceans, crawfish, I think might be a way to find out. I think it depends on the person and the situation, but yeah.
Seeing how far they're willing to go out of their comfort zone is a thing for me. I like to test that out. Not necessarily at Boiling Crab, but one way or another, right?
At a samgyeopsal place.
Yeah.
Yeah, some way or another. Then it comes into how important food plays a role in your life, right? So what if they just don't have that kind of same level of connection with the food?
For me, it's no-go. Because for me, food is my life. It's part of my occupation. It's been a part of my occupation for 25 years now. And so since it's such a big part of my life, if they can't share this with me, then it's not worth a go for me. So,
But you didn't establish that with your wife on that first week where you just...
No, we did not.
Okay.
But we didn't also know we were going to get married either.
But you
true.
established
That's a
that
good point.
you guys are alcoholics.
Yes.
Okay.
That was another big part of our life as well. So
Let's just point out that that's a deal breaker for some people too. Like, hey, you don't enjoy food? Well, this isn't gonna work. Or hey, you don't enjoy alcohol?
Right.
Well, this isn't gonna work.
right. So after that one week of debauchery, we actually did start going out to eat after that, and then we both learned that, of course I love food, but I found out that she also loved food as well. So it worked out in the end. So
The difference, of course, being that I don't think anyone's ever gonna say you love food too much. Some people will love alcohol too much.
yes,
And that gets to be dangerous, of course, right?
obviously.
What about, like, for me, I know that it's as long as you don't try to force your viewpoints on me in any way, shape, or form, doesn't matter if it's food or not, then we'll be fine. Like,
Sure.
I'm gonna respect whatever their dietary needs are, right? Some people are lactose intolerant. Some people don't like donuts.
So bringing that up, so you mean like earlier when we're doing the Facebook Live, my friend Justine, who is
Hi, Justine.
happily married, and you guys are cool now.
I hope we're good now.
Yeah, you guys
All
are
right.
cool. You guys are cool. But
Okay,
but she
awesome.
she said basically you said you love donuts, and how did she respond?
I think she said you shouldn't eat donuts or something similar to that, right?
And this guy doesn't get really fired up that much, but I saw a little fire in your eyes, and you got a little excited there, right?
Yeah, that was donuts are a passion for me, and actually I'll explain why. Do you guys know I like donuts so much?
No.
No, please tell your donut story.
Well, it kind of goes back to one of my first like really early memories was hanging out with my mom on Sunday and watching like Barney, that purple dinosaur, where I was part of that generation, right? And our apartment complex had donuts that were free like every Sunday, so she would just walk me out there and we would get donuts and we'd come back and we watch Barney. And that was like one of the I don't think I've ever been happier than that. That was like the entire world was hanging out with my mom, watching Barney and these donuts. And I think I can still connect to that. When I talk about it, I can taste it in my mouth. And I remember the exact setting, what TV we had, what brand it was, what color the box was. And that's a strong connection for me, right?
Sure.
And so that's kind of why I feel strongly about donuts. So for someone to tell me that they don't like donuts, that's fine. But to tell me that you shouldn't eat donuts is a very different thing. To say you shouldn't do something is to tell someone how to live their life. And that goes beyond food, right?
Of course.
And that's kind of how I feel about it. So if someone were to step in that way, it's more about telling me you shouldn't, right? And that's kind of across the line right there.
But these are all things that you find out during the dating process.
Of course.
And, the dating process is obviously you're trying to learn about each other and find the compatibility. And, obviously food for me is a big issue. I'm sure it is for a lot of you as well. But if that compatibility isn't there, then obviously you guys shouldn't be getting married. So, but obviously you guys didn't get married. So.
Oh my God, what's the point? Yeah, that's...
Are you pointing at Chuck and I?
Thomas came in a really big bus today.
The difference here, Thomas, and obviously so, is that your career is founded on food, right? So
Yes.
I feel like if someone were to give you that ultimatum, me or the food, you're going to choose the food, not only because it's the food, but it's also your career, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And I think at this point in my life, I would do the same. If someone gave me giving someone an ultimatum is always it's not in your favor to do.
But I mean, we're talking about ultimatums, but even during our dating process, if food was not important with my current wife right now, we probably would not have gotten married.
It was integral in
Yes.
building that relationship,
Yes.
right?
Because it's an important aspect for me, because I eat 500 plus times a year outside in restaurants, and that's a very enjoyable thing for me. So if I can't share that, with a future wife, then we're just not going to get married.
That's a interesting point. Using the food to build a relationship.
For me, it's that important. For other, it might not be, but for others, there are still things that you can have compatible. It doesn't have to be food, but
I think food is such a big part of our lives, you know? There's a reason why we enjoy getting food with people we love, people we like. We enjoy getting food, you know, we enjoy going to get a good meal together, right? It builds community.
It's a social thing.
Right. It's a very social thing. But basically, if you guys don't connect on that level, that means you're saying, I'm okay not connecting on this level with this person for the rest of my life. And I could see how that's too big of a thing, you know? It's too big of a thing. It's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's, you know, you wake up with this person, you eat, you know? So for me, I just feel, yeah, I think for me as well, I think it would definitely be a deal breaker if she didn't enjoy food. Because also I think it says a lot about you. You know, if you're someone who likes trying new foods or, you know, enjoying good foods, I think it says a lot about how you enjoy life as well.
I just want to take a second to point out that we are all saying she, not necessarily like because like it has to be a woman, right? Just because we happen to be heterosexual males, and we're talking in a very general sense. I don't want people to get offended over that.
I don't think they will, but I guess you're a switch hitter.
Why are we all touching all of a sudden? Like everyone's got their hands on their shoulders. Like, is there something I don't understand?
male bonding.
Male bonding. I wanted to also point out that so what you're saying is building common ground over mutual shared interest of food. But when you don't have that common ground, I found that testing the fiber of your relationship, the quality, and how far you're both willing to go and how open your mindsets are, trying to bridge that gap where, hey, you know what, we don't actually connect on food very much, but I still really want to be around you. You know, that's something in and of itself. So
Right,
if you
but
can overcome that difference.
You would have to have another common ground then.
I mean, for me, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. Like, I mean, it's no secret. I love to eat. I love to be around food. Food is fairly important to me. But, you know, as long as there are other points of, let's say, commonality that we share that can sort of make up for that, well, then it's not a big deal for me. But it can be, but it doesn't have to be.
So you actually have to make up a lot of ground if you don't enjoy food.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe for me,
on the terms that you enjoy food.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm perfectly fine going out to eat alone. You know, it's like, oh, if you don't want to go with me, it's fine. I'll just do it alone. And I'm used to it. So that's not a really big deal. But of course, it's always better if, you know, they share the same interests and they share that same passion.
Of course. Of course.
So let's talk about a little bit more about punigi. Are there places that you won't take a girl?
Like in general, I don't think there's anywhere that you can't take someone. But that's very different from, let's say, first date, first impression kind of thing.
I think this is a part of, you know, we are based out of here, like Korea, right? And this is an instance in which Korea separates itself in a very interesting way, because when you have a group gathering or a date, you have 1차, 2차, 3차. I feel like in the States or other places, you might have your main thing that you do. You might go to see a movie, which is, as I think we all agree, kind of a terrible first date idea, but It's a common one. It's a lame one. You might have your coffee and dessert. You might have your dinner, coffee, dessert. But in Korea, you kind of feel out how the date is going, and you have your 1차, your main thing. Cool. Really quickly, you guys have a go-to 1차?
No.
Restaurant.
Restaurant, or I mean, I've also seen it I've also experienced it this way where you will go get, you know, you'll meet at a coffee shop, and depending on how that goes, you decide whether to have dinner or not.
Yeah, actually, I kind of like that, meeting at a coffee shop. If I had to choose something like that, it'd be something really casual before deciding to proceed. So you have 1차, the first round, and then 2차, possibly, right? If there's actually some chemistry, and then 3차. So it creates this wealth of places, these different atmospheres, because every single place is a different atmosphere, right?
Sure.
So what do you try to strive for in 1차? For me, it's just, can I even talk to you? Do I feel anything, or am I indifferent? Would I rather put my headphones back on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I think for me, the biggest thing is conversation, right? And I think that's why when we were talking earlier, you know, we said that you don't want a place that's too loud. I think I don't mind a place that's too quiet per se, because it really doesn't matter. I don't mind it being awkward. I don't mind a little cricket, because I think that, that goes back to the whole uncomfortable thing, where uncomfortable is not necessarily bad when you're trying to get to know a person, I think.
The silence is rather telling too. Like when I like to watch how people react to certain things I say or certain things I do. So one thing that I'll do just to watch how OCD my friends are, and not necessarily dates, but like my friends, is if we get something to share together, like a piece of cake, right? I'll actually eat it from the back of the cake just to see if that bothers them.
Instead of slicing it and getting individual portions? Or?
No, like if it's just one slice of cake.
Sure.
So
Right,
you have a
usually
triangle and you're just going.
Oh, you're going from the
back-
opposite
the wide
end.
end instead of the tip of it, right? Some people it doesn't bother them at all, and some people like they'll look at me.
Why would it bother you?
Yeah,
Or
why?
bother someone?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm coming at it, but
So that's your OCD test to be like,
I'm kind of trolling, honestly, right? But I want to see what your level of comfort is.
Well, I would pass that test.
Yeah, well,
I wouldn't care.
I think you just eat it with your hand, Thomas. I wouldn't be surprised, but that's just one way I like to feel out like the awkwardness, like you're talking about. We're kind of going off on a tangent a little bit. Okay, so baseline, ilcha, establishing comfort, icha.
I mean, I think, like I said earlier, for food, I just want it to be somewhere comfortable. I think that's very important. Maybe, I know, like, Chuck said he likes to make the other person, it's not always a bad thing to try to make someone feel uncomfortable, to sort of test their limits.
I think Chuck's never going to get a date after this.
For me, comfort is sort of very important, at least on the very first date. As far as pushing boundaries goes, that would sort of come later on, where if I get to know that person better, and if I even want to do something like that with that particular person. But at least for the first meeting, I just want it to be sort of where you don't feel pressure. You don't feel pressure from, let's say, the awkwardness of it all. You just want to be somewhere where you can just sort of be yourself.
But I think a lot of being yourself comes through like situations that you're not prepared for. I don't think you should be comfortable in an interview or a first date. Those aren't settings that you're naturally comfortable in, right? But for me, I feel like in those situations, if you can connect with the person, that says a lot about like that there is an actual connection.
So at a random time, you just take a tennis ball and throw it at their head just to see what their reaction is.
Oh my gosh.
This is why James has been spotted outside in the wild by a number of different individuals, and none of us have, because James comes off as this, hey, how can I make you comfortable? And we're over here like trolling them, like, well, what do you really like, right? Okay, so you're trying to go for a place that lets you feel like more at home.
At ease, yes.
At ease, okay. Got an example of that? I mean, I know exactly what kind of places that is for me. It would be a bar. It would be a bar with nice cocktails, somewhat dimmer than lighting that you see here if you were actually watching this via YouTube.
Why do you need dim lighting, buddy?
I don't know, because I'm not that attractive. Maybe it's for their benefit. How about that?
Wait, what's with the bait and switch? That's the whole like pretentiousness of like, oh, maybe this will make the first date better.
Maybe alcohol will make the first date better.
You're like, this will make me look better. Have another glass.
Another gallon.
I guess
Wow.
for me, wow.
Thomas, thank
Hey,
you.
that's like push and then shove.
Yeah.
But I feel like part of the first date is hopefully getting to know the person beyond the pretense, and whether you're comfortable or not, hopefully getting to know that person means like not trying to be like, oh, we need more alcohol for us to look good, or, we need some sort of other things. Because for me, those are kind of barriers. And I feel like those situations can be revealing, but they're not the type, like, it doesn't really provide real intimacy, It doesn't really allow you to really get to know somebody. I feel like when you ask like good questions or you have good conversations and you connect, those are the times that you really get to know somebody.
But within the context of a first date,
Right.
it can be the excuse to say things that you mean while still being able to dismiss it later. Right? I am not saying I do that. I believe that's cowardly. But if it allows you to be more honest and then you stick by it later, I know most people, when they say something when they're a little bit buzzed, like they'll be like, yeah, that's how I felt. Right? Honesty is a big thing for most people. So if it allows you to do that, then yeah, why not, right?
I mean, I think as far as like, as far as pushing buttons and stuff like that, just trying to get that sort of emotion out of them, I think, at least for me, a lot of that can be done conversationally as well, to where
Right.
you don't necessarily have to do it with the food per se. So for me, like I said, the environment is sort of very important. And as far as like, I just tend to be, sarcastic and cynical to begin with. So I can just throw in, let's just say, verbal jabs if that's the case. If you really want to sort of push buttons and see what's going on.
No, I'm gonna stop you right there because you've mentioned that like a number of times, and we all have. And now I just have to know, what do you ask to push buttons, and what response are you looking for?
Honestly, it's not even about what I ask, but it'll be, they're all very sort of like timing things. Like there are certain doors that open up in the course of a conversation to where, let's just say, the cynic comes out, and you'll throw that out there. And a lot of the reaction that I get is this sort of general look of shock, first of all, because sarcasm doesn't really translate well in the Korean culture. And they end up just thinking that you're sort of a jerk at the beginning. And then you really sort of have to diffuse it really quickly and let them know that you're joking. And then the more you do it, or after a couple of times, they start to understand that sort of sense of humor. And then, in the end, they just stop believing you because they think you're lying about everything. But anyways, but it's fun. That's just sort of, let's say, my icebreaker, because that's just the way I am. Because when I like someone, I tend to make fun of them a little bit. Because if I don't like them, I just don't talk to them.
Yeah,
at
then
all.
you don't have that comfort to make.
I
fun
just
of them,
don't
maybe.
talk to them. Yeah, exactly.
But I want a tangible example. I want to hear exactly what you. So for example,
But he just went from like he likes making the girl comfortable to he jabs her and makes her uncomfortable to the point where she has to understand that you're a jerk.
No, it's not to any particular point. I'm just saying.
this is a very interesting picture of everyone's dating lives. Like for me, the example I'm looking for from you guys is like sometimes I will ask, when was the last time you kissed someone for the first time, to see if like they're even comfortable, like the look in their eye when they hear the question, and whether they're willing to respond. And you can always tell if like someone's lying, right? And that's something that I might do to just kind of
Actually,
see.
a better question here in Korea would be, so who's your plastic surgeon?
Wow.
I think that would be a better jab.
Wow.
I've actually got a consultation from a plastic surgeon before, which is actually an episode of Rock Bottom I did, so check that out. That's the plug right there. We'll put the link on screen if you're on YouTube or somewhere in the description, but you get to know what they would have changed about my face. Don't make comments, guys. Let's move on, right? Let's move on to samcha, something that exists in Korea. In my humble opinion, if you make it to samcha, especially on the first date, everything is game. If you want to go to a 3 a.m. place that sells like bunshik, just like the tteokbokki and the sundae and the fried foods, it's fair game. If you want to go to a sushi, pojang matcha, and get soju on the side of a street somewhere, I think it's all good by that point.
I think that's the kind of place you're looking for at a samcha. Samcha, sacha. That's exactly the kind of thing you're looking for. Just something that,
It could be noraebang.
yeah, it's just
Right.
street food. You're just going there. At that point, you're just going to some place that you can keep on drinking, and then you keep on eating, and you want to keep on having fun. So it's not really about the food at that point.
I think it's about keeping it rolling, because if you make it that far,
Sure.
right, you're already having a good time. All these pretenses are kind of gone, like the need for a certain ambience is gone. The need for a certain level of quality of food or drink is just...
I think if you make it to samcha, I think that's like the magic round where you're having a great time with each other. Nothing else matters. It's basically one-on-one. And the food at that point may not be the most important thing. You're interested in each other. So like when I go out with my wife sometimes, if we're not feeling it after ircha, we're going home.
I think that's a wise decision. Like you shouldn't force something that's obviously not going very well.
But that was a joke, by the way.
Since it's kind of a unique situation in Korea, I think if there was, like you said, more pretense in ilcha, samcha is really when the makeup comes off, right? It's really when
That's a good analogy. I
it's-
like that.
It's really when you're like, okay, now we're comfortable, right? Now we went through the hoops of. I like the picture you present. I even like hanging out with you enough to get to know talk more. At the end of the day, it is about intimacy, right? It's not just about like the drinking or just you want to spend time with that person, hopefully to get deeper into relationship, understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. All right, we're bringing this to a close, and as always, we're gonna do it in explosive fashion. We're gonna go with some worst date stories.
And I think
Hopefully.
Chuck has the most, so we'll let him start.
Wow. Thanks. Thanks. I appreciate the confidence in me all the time.
Chuck, what comes to mind, buddy?
No, I mean, I actually
Too hard to pick from all those choices.
I actually went on a lot of dates back in the States, and there was a date that was pretty bad because it went so well and then it went so bad. I think that's what made it so bad. What I mean by that is the first date, it was she was a little older than me, and you know there wasn't any issue with it on the first date. Things went well, well enough to the point where it was like magical. Like, oh yeah, let's go walk, you know, on the beach, or let's talk, or whatever. You know, it was just things were natural. Where it went bad is that when we met up for the second date, for some reason, it became a big issue that she was older than me. Like right when we sat down for the second date, she mentioned my brother's your age, you know, and I'm like, okay, why would you make that's such a random thing to just bring out like that, right? But I could tell it was bothering her, where she kept on trying to put me in my place almost, where it's like
That's awkward.
no, it was really awkward.
Yeah.
Where like I mentioned something like, oh yeah, you know, like you know, Ron Artest on the Lakers recently changed his name to Meta World Peace, and she was like, no, he didn't. I'm like, no, I'm a big Laker fan. I know this for a fact. He did. And then she was kind of like, no, he didn't. You're just like messing with me. I'm not going to fall for that type thing. And I was like, hey, waitress, can you just come over and answer this question? And then it was just kind of like one of those situations where you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like a long, bad night, where she just kind of was stuck in this mode of like, you're younger than me, you know? And it was bad enough where...
And this was in the States too.
Yeah,
you
this was...
said.
This
But
was
you
in the
realize
States.
that was an argument you were never going to win, because even if you're wrong, you're wrong, and if
Right,
you're right,
right.
you still don't come across looking very good.
Right. But then it was bad enough where right when we said bye or whatever, she like texted me. She's like, "I'm sorry," like because she kind of knew, like I think right afterwards that she had some weird issue with.
She was bringing
my
something
age.
into
Right,
it, right?
I think the worst dates that I've ever had were the dates that actually just want to come out for a free meal.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have had this as well, where they just want to come out, get a free meal, get a free drink, and then it's like, okay, bye. And there's actually no interest from the very beginning. And I
So
think
it's kind of on you a little bit too.
but these were like blind dates.
Ah,
Right.
So, and then when I would ask the friend who set us up on a blind date, I would ask him bluntly, you know, did this girl even have any interest, or was she just looking for this one date night where she could get a free meal, free drink, whatever? And he would fess up.
ah,
Nice
So-
friend.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
nice
not a good
friend.
right?
I mean, honestly, probably the worst first date I ever had, and this one's all on me, was probably when I was 16 and I had come to Korea, and I got set up on this date by my dad and his hygienist's 동생. So they set us up on this thing, and for some reason, I decided we were going to go to a bar. Even though I knew I was allergic to alcohol, I decided that's where we were going to go. And I ordered a drink, she ordered a drink, and about halfway through my drink, I decided that, you know, I ran straight to the bathroom, I had to get sick, and that was basically the end of my date. You know, I came out, and I looked green, and I was just like, I just got to go home, you know, and so I left her there, and I just went straight home.
Wait, so you looked at her and you're like, I'm gonna have to have this drink to get me out of here, or
No, I figured,
escape?
it was still at that time where I wasn't 100% sure. I was 95% sure that I was allergic to it and I couldn't drink. But I figured that was the cool thing to do. Let's go have a drink.
And when was this again?
When I was 16.
Okay.
Oh, back then in Korea, they would, oh, you're a foreigner? We'll take your money. They didn't care how old you
Okay.
were.
And I think back then, actually, 16 was a legal drinking age.
I don't really know. All I know is anytime that Kyopos came, all the bars opened their doors, and then they jacked you on the prices. So yeah, that was a date that lasted all of about 40 minutes, and obviously I never heard from the person again. And yeah, I learned my lesson.
You were a young man. My worst, actually, I don't know if it was that bad, but it left a really bitter taste in my mouth because of kind of what went down. I was asked, do you want to do this date story for a periodical here in Seoul? And they put two people together and they kind of detail the date. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. It sounds like an interesting thing. But when I went on the date, the person was friendly enough, and we got, just like whatever food somewhere, just to establish that like initial level of comfort before we went out to go grab a drink and just hang out. But during the course of that, I think in maybe the 2차 or the 3차, she disclosed to me that she worked for that periodical. So what happens is, at the end of the date, the next day or whatever, you're supposed to write up how it went, a review, right? And because she works there, she's privy to what I wrote without, like, she could have, I'm not saying she did, but she would have access to what I wrote, and I would not have had access to what she wrote, all before publishing. And so, it was hard to get past that at the moment, which colored the entire experience as well. So any possibility of like any sort of romantic connection was murdered right there and then. And even after that, I'm like, wow, that was really just a dishonest thing that kind of how I feel like I'm taken advantage of.
Seriously, it's so contrived.
Yeah, right. And a lot of stuff in media, I know being within media, a lot of stuff is contrived, but it's contrived in a way where it's like, oh, there's no victim here. Like clearly here, this is just a question of ethics.
Sure. And
that was probably my worst experience in recent memory. I can't remember anything more dishonest than that, actually. The person herself, she was a cool person. Like we didn't really click that way, but the possibility of having clicked that way was completely removed after that. Yeah. Hopefully all your dates are a lot better. Let's bring this to a close, shall we, Chuck?
Yeah. Check us out on Facebook. Look up Foodie Call. And also on all of your podcasts. Look up G1 Podcast. That's spelled with the letter G, the number 1, PDCST.
Subscribe, like. We're doing this thing where we live stream before we record now on Facebook, if we can figure out the technicals on that. Right? Yeah.
This is Chuck.
This is Thomas.
James.
And I'm GP. We are Foodie Call. We'll catch you in the next one.
이번역은 사당역입니다. 내리시는 건 왼쪽입니다. 잠시 뒤 신도림 상공을 하실 수 있겠습니다. 이번역에서